With Soulcalibur VI on the way, or maybe it's already been released by the time you're watching this, the times when YouTube recommends things can be weird, I want to take a look at the characters that should be on the roster. But not just any characters, I want to take a look at the underexplored characters of the series, whether they've been playable in the past or simply a part of the lore. So my main rule for this list is I won't include characters that have had a major part in multiple games in the past in order to shine the spotlight on some of the lesser or forgotten warriors that have still been established in Soulcalibur's lore. Of course, I'm simply judging based on observation if these characters are forgotten. Maybe they have a cult fan base that I don't know about, but they seem to be characters that the minority of the fan base wants back, if any. Without those restrictions, I'd probably just say everyone from the main Soulcalibur IV roster should be in Soulcalibur VI, and then I'd emphasize my need for Setsuka back in my life.
Give up and die!
This topic was inspired by suggestions from Midnight Huergo, Corgian, Soulcalibur Nun, Matt Bennett on Twitter, Saki on Twitter, and myself. I wanted to do this regardless. So let's take a look back at the stage of history for my top 10 forgotten characters that should be in Soulcalibur VI. Number 10, ZhangLeon. As with many characters on this list, we'll mostly have concept art to base full movesets on. If they did appear in game, they usually borrowed existing movesets and used basic Create-A-Character features to put their design together. Enter example 1 of this, ZhangLeon, the adopted sister of Keelik. She looks similar to Jean Hua, and fights like her too. I wonder who she'd play like if she was her own unique character.
Probably Necrid.
Since I like her impact in the story more than her potential playstyle, I'm going to change the latter up a bit. In the story, she had a sacred mirror jewel that could purify anything with a name that I'll never pronounce correctly. The jewel ultimately prevented her from going insane like everyone else around her, leading to her willing sacrifice to save Keelik and company. Keelik, and eventually Leisha, wore it in her honor. I think this could be a big part of her moveset. As we've been getting more projectile-based fighters in the series, she could summon balls of light energy with the pendant that vary in speed to give her more space control like Algol's orbs. Even if her close-range weapon attacks are more standard for the series, it would be cool to see a character with so much influence on a series mainstay take an active role on the roster. Number 9, Toki. Toki is the master of the Fuma Ninja Clan, meaning he's the one that trained Toki. Their leader has to have some great moves behind him. Namco likely thought of his name by taking Toki's name and exchanging a vow. I love playing Toki and Natsu, so a variant of their fighting styles that would entail a more technical Fuma ninjutsu using their master Toki would be a great way to expand the clan's lore. Since he's depicted as holding a single sword with one hand, I could see him being a one-handed character to reflect his mastery of the weapon, making him like a ninja Setsuka but with more teleports.
Well, at least your stance is correct. Ha! My life is not yours for the taking.
He eventually lost his title as master after he fell under an evil influence, likely Soul Edge, and turned into this big demon fox guy. Perhaps if Toki appeared in this demon form, he could borrow some moves from the Soulcalibur Legends characters Geki and Maki, who were similarly corrupted members of the Fuma clan. Toki could be Geki-sized to be a brute with hard-hitting short combos, flailing his double sword power. Maki created tornadoes with her bow, so maybe Toki could borrow that skill too. This could lead to some Rashid-style space control or OTG setups. It's just a start to a moveset, but you never know what tricks the Ninja Grandmaster is hiding, good or evil. Number 8, Arcturus. He's the son of Algol. I always felt like Algol needed more representation via other characters on the roster. Everyone else had characters they knew or were related to or just had a rivalry with. And then in Soulcalibur IV, boom, there's Algol, no friends, no enemies, just has the swords and a personality, but we only hear about his backstory through exposition and with a few glimpses in arcade mode endings. Algol then appeared in 5, but with no characters accompanying him that expand his lore. Wanna know why he's even here? Read the wiki! Arcturus' story was that he was jealous of his father mastering Soul Edge, so he stole the Wicked Sword. But Soul Edge was like, No, and possessed him, causing Arcturus to turn on his family and forcing Algol to kill the now lost mind of his son. The whole Algol story is pretty interesting, so fitting references to it into 6 would give his story some more weight, even if it doesn't work chronologically with Soulcalibur VI's timeline placement. Arcturus was in 4 with create-a-character properties as a Nightmare clone, so he'd really have to be changed up to be unique, unless they wanted to make him the current Nightmare, but nah. He has a knightly appearance, so I could imagine him with a basic sword and shield, maybe a chain weapon. Not much to go off of overall, but I'd love to see how Namco could expand the Algol story. Number 7, Chester. Look at this smug fellow, don't you hate him already? One of the more generic character designs, but I think he could work as a posh henchman since he has that over-the-top cheesy arrogance to him. In the potential story, I could see him pretending to be loyal to Nightmare to get Soul Edge, and then just when he thinks the time is right to betray the scary monster guy, Nightmare just flings him off to the side with no effort. Don't even make it dramatic, just make it funny. Chester's role in Chronicles of the Sword in Soulcalibur III pretty much was that, where he was trying to get 2 kingdoms to go to war with each other only to be thwarted by us. The best part about Chester though is his moveset, which uses the dagger create-a-character moveset in his Soul appearance in Soulcalibur III. The dagger was overall a cool weapon that enabled you to shoot a bomb projectile and jump around the screen throwing bombs. Really, I just like the way they utilized bombs with his moveset, partially evident by the fact that I'm showing a custom character rather than Chester himself. The funny thing is, Link was the first bomb user in Soulcalibur, but Chester seemed to be a lot more effective with them. Sorry, Link. So even if Namco wants to say screw Chester, they can at least tell that dagger playstyle to make a comeback.
Hey, win.
See? I told you that it's futile.
Number 6, Zwei. Why is his neck so thick? Now, calling a character that was just introduced in the last installment forgotten may sound a bit melodramatic, but it seems like most of the new characters from Soulcalibur V get pushed by the wayside with fan popularity. A big reason being is they got very little backstory with the lacking story and arcade mode, not to mention all those borrowed movesets. But with the 2 purely original movesets we got, Zwei generally seems to be the character people forget about. Viola though, pretty high popularity. Zwei was low tier and was unceremoniously killed off in the story after having a big role that got overshadowed by Patroclus being an arrogant snot, and Viola being Amy, but no one in story bothered to point that out. Zwei had a short-range weapon that was supported by his all-around tool of Ein, his spirit werewolf buddy. Utilizing both the weapon and the wolf to their fullest extent meant the player would have to properly time when he uses Ein in combos and setups. The main reason being, Ein had a brief cooldown period after he was summoned, but it was worth it if you got that extended combo or that guard break or Ein setting your opponent like he was the captain of his volleyball team. Zwei was really technical, but seeing his playstyle concept disappear just because the character himself had a silent existence would be a shame. I know Soulcalibur VI takes place during the Soulcalibur I era, but we could always retcon Zwei's age, if he has a canon age. Soulcalibur V had us fill in a lot of those blanks. Number 5, Shura. Soulcalibur IV had some bonus characters that were basically glorified alternate skins for existing characters, yet these characters were still canon to the series. Shura is one of them, and I mainly want her back because her design is cool. Skull, shoulder, pad. Her twin katana style uses Cervantes' moveset, but I think she would play more like Shiki from the Samurai Showdown series. I really just based this on their appearances and weapons. Since Shiki has been playable on both a 2D and 3D plane, Shura has various ways to inspire a new moveset. This all assuming they change her borrowed moveset, but keeping her one special skill, which allowed a spirit possessing her to give her a whole new moveset, being Voldo's in her playable appearance. Just do something cool with the spirit transformation, I don't know, have her turn into Bishiman or something. Shura's weapons were named Rajin Maru and Fujin Maru, named after the lightning and wind gods respectively, so maybe they could have some lightning and wind effects to add some power to her weapons. The Rajin Hygiene Blade could have more hit stun when used in combos to reflect the effects of electricity users in fighting games, and the Fujin Blade could create a push-pull effect like some other wind users in fighting games like Storm. And if Shura does utilize the wind, Talim's gonna show Shura who's the real Wind Master.
Some things can only be conveyed through battle.
Number 4, Lilong. Lilong had the guts to sneak attack the final boss of Soul Edge, Cervantes. It went about as well as you'd expect for someone who's not a main character. Cervantes nearly obliterated Lilong so hard in battle that Lilong was almost knocked right out of the series. All future appearances of his nunchaku fighting style were inherited by fan favorite Maxi. Afterwards, Lilong only appeared as a bonus character in Soulcalibur VI with no differentiation in his moveset from Maxi. As someone who likes Maxi, I think Lilong never got a chance to prove his worth as a character in the series. With Maxi getting plenty of appearances to be fleshed out, it's understandable why he stayed. At the very least, I like Lilong's anime eyebrows and think he deserves a fighting chance. I would suggest overhauling Lilong's moveset since Maxi has made the nunchaku his own. Maybe keep the nunchaku but use these retractable blades that seem to appear on Lilong's concept art. It can work like that Dampierre flare where he hits you and a blade pops out to knock your opponent in the air for more juggling combo opportunities. My final and weirdest idea is to have his wife Chie involved somehow. Chie's not a fighter, but lore states that she has the greatest spiritual power in all of the Fuma clans, so maybe have her involved in a super move or visual effects when he activates Brave Edges. Just a thought. Regardless, give Lilong another chance. Don't make that Soulcalibur III model swap his last appearance. Even Huang got to be his own character in another game. Number 3, Pyrrha Omega. This might be a surprising choice since she was just an alternate version of a character from the previous installment, but Pyrrha Omega was one of my favorite characters to play. Similar to Zwei, despite her prominent role in the story, people tend to forget about her due to the mediocre story and her not being as good of a character from a tier list perspective. She was slow with strong hits and less range than her cowardly counterpart, putting her at a disadvantage against even her unmalfested self. However, she was really fun to play. I liked the force behind all of her attacks that had a big impact when they connected with her opponents. Even though her combos were generally short, I like how her best combo starters left her opponents in a longer stun or grounded state so she could keep on slashing, or stabbing. It matched the brutal nature of her attacks. It was a good alteration of the more angelic Sophidia moveset to make her feel like a unique counterpart despite reusing animations. Even in battle, I liked her personality. Regular Pyrrha was the cliche, "I have to fight, but I don't wanna," as she cowardly yet ruthlessly stabs her opponent. Omega, on the other hand, was just a fun angry character to control, and who doesn't love an old-fashioned angry character? She just starts off in berserk mode. She's not afraid to just deck her opponent right in the gut. Her lines in battle sound so pissed off, like when she says, "Burn everything!" during her throw. Great line for intimidation, a terrible motto for her cooking career, but I dressed her up as a chef anyway. There's so much I like about her design and personality. I know she has a 0% chance of returning for Soulcalibur VI, but I hope to see her return someday, even with the botched story that was wrapped up. Number 2, Giselle. Does it count as forgotten if we never knew this character existed in the first place? She was part of Dampierre's Band of Thieves, and despite the fact that Dampierre was a joke character who does not need his lore expanded upon, I really like Giselle's design and weapon choices. I think she could make a good standalone character. Really, all of Dampierre's team has interesting enough weaponry. Long story short, she's the niece of a noble that joined Dampierre's team because she thought he was just a swell guy who wasn't a thief or a con man at all. Yet she still took on the title of Lady Bandit, so either she caught on or is just incredibly gullible. Her artwork shows her 3 main weapons: the crossbow, darts, and playing cards. With these powers combined, I'd assume she'd be a projectile-based zoner, which is really difficult to implement for a 3D plane, or a trap-setting character. With Ezio in Soulcalibur V, I think she could essentially take his crossbow moves. Those were pretty solid as useful projectiles. The darts can be her fastest projectiles that only hit high as a trade-off. But if she uses some meter, they can have a scatter effect where she throws a few at the same time, either vertically or horizontally. As for the deck of cards, more projectiles? Maybe those could be her handheld weapons, really sharp playing cards. This idea's getting silly. The point is, she holds a lot of tools that would allow the developers to get real creative. Even if Namco decides to cut Dampierre, I think Giselle could be a fighter on her own. Just show her life before Dampierre. Who knows, maybe she always had an aptitude for her weapons. Honorable mentions, sort of. Instead of just listing more lesser known characters that have the slimmest of chances, I'm going to give you the list of top 10 characters from the series absent from 5 that I wanted to see return in Soulcalibur VI that I planned before 6 was even announced. Most of which were either announced early on or were implied to be in the game, causing me to scratch that list and go with this idea. Anyway, number 10, Sophidia. First trailer, well that was fast. Number 9, Yun Sung. Number 8, the actual number 1 choice for the forgotten character list, so ignore that. Pretend it's Rock. Number 7, Zhang Hua. Hey, she's here, cool. Number 6, Cassandra. Number 5, Zoslamel. Thank you for announcing him so early, Namco. Number 4, Sungmina. Number 3, Setsuka. Patroclus Alpha knows what he took from us. Number 2, Talim. Number 1, Toki. Natsu was alright though, she grew on me. Hopefully they're all in the game already by the time you're watching this video. Then in my notes I wrote to put Pyrrha Omega as an honorable mention on that list since I felt she needed some more support, so before I open up even more levels of Inception, here's number 1 for the list I was actually presenting. My number 1 may disappoint since it's not the most glamorous or badass character. She even uses a fighting style from another character, but that doesn't mean we can't change it up for a new game. Number 1, Ashlot. Like Shura, she was one of those bonus characters in Soulcalibur IV that borrowed existing movesets. Of the 4 though, Ashlot seemed like she had the most lore in the series. She was created by the cult Feigl Sestimus, who have been around since Soulcalibur I. They created Astaroth to obtain the Soul Edge for the god of war Ares. By Soulcalibur III though, Astaroth was like, okay, I've had enough of this crap, and rebelled against the cult, killing most of them. In Soulcalibur IV, the remaining members thought, you know, maybe we should make something a bit less evil and abandon this whole Soul Edge for Ares thing. Enter their new creation, Ashlot. Her goal? Kill Astaroth. Instead of being made of clay like Astaroth and brought to life by a soul, she was essentially the world's first robot, being a life-size mechanical doll. Her blood type was oil and her soul was nothing. Something about her seems creepy since an emotionless 4-foot-tall wind-up doll with an executioner axe seems uncanny, but I feel everything went right with her design for me. First off, I like the idea of her backstory being a what has science done story, where she's the new experiment meant to take down the old evil experiment. Next, I like the gothic look of her outfit. The mechanical arms and gears showing is a great way to show that she's an ancient robot. An ancient gear golem, if you will. And her dress is made of sheet metal, which is also very creative. It makes for a fun contrast to the expectedly huge grappler build of Astaroth. Finally, I like the creep factor with her design. She reminds me of that Sailor Moon episode with that living doll that would spray people with sleeping gas. Potential moveset. To differ her moveset from Astaroth, I think she should have more moves that utilize her robotic properties. Give her some rocket boosters that let her charge her opponents for some quick command grabs. Being like a wind-up doll, maybe she could have more jerky motions that allow her to hold and cancel out of moves for more mind games. And why doesn't she just go full Elisa and remove her limbs when fighting? Regardless, with such a weird and unique design for the series, I'd like to see this unexpected grappler revamped for Soulcalibur VI in my constant pursuit of getting more robots in fighting games, more so than any of the other B-Team characters in the franchise. So, what are your thoughts on this topic? Are there any Soulcalibur characters low on the popularity or memory rankings that deserve another shot, or even their first shot? What characters in general are you excited or hopeful to see in Soulcalibur 6 at some point? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.